So when it comes to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Dio and Diavolo have a lot in common. Outside of being some of the best villains in JoJo's and arguably the top 2 most evil villains in the series, it seems that Hirohiko Araki intended them to function as 2 parallels to each other, and surprisingly, this isn't something that is talked about a lot by most JoJo fans within the community, as a lot of people just seem to consider Diavolo as the enemy of Dio's son when it comes to their shared duality, which is understandable because at first glance, the parallels between the two will seem pretty obvious and straightforward to most JoJo and anime fans alike. For instance, most fans are familiar with the fact that both their names are Italian, along with the fact that Dio's name translates to God in English, while Diavolo's translates to devil in English as well, which establishes a religious parallel between the two, mainly when it comes to Christianity. This is also strengthened further by the iconic meme that will usually be a online post or tweet showing 2 images, one with Polnareff looking at Dio from below in part 3, with the other one being Polnareff looking down at Diavolo from above in part 5, which is basically meant to insinuate that these 2 scenes with Polnareff are clear references to Christianity. I don't need to explain why, as the images speak for themselves, and I don't think that it is a stretch to say that Araki did intend this parallel and symbolism when he wrote part 5. Obviously part 3 is kind of a different story just because that came a decade prior, and he did originally intend to end the series with part 3 at the time of writing its original story in the original manga before writing part 4. Now when it comes to Dio and Diavolo's duality, I don't think that the parallels stop there like many other people do, as I think there's more than just those 2 things that we just discussed. To start off, Dio is someone that is really charming and popular, to the point where he gained a massive following during the 4 years that he was active before the events of part 3, Stardust Crusaders. He was even seen as the perfect leader in the eyes of his followers and minions, and was able to attract a lot of people to him through just his charisma alone, without the need to heavily rely on fear or on manipulative and forceful tactics. Meanwhile, you have Diavolo, who instead of being loved is universally hated by everyone in part 5 Golden Wind. He does not care about having a good image, he only cares about remaining in power and keeping his identity anonymous. All of the minor villains that we see in part 5 either don't care about Diavolo, like Squalo and Tiziano, or want to take over his organization and dethrone him like Chocolate and Secco, or actively despise him and want to try and find his identity and kill him like the Hitman team, who by the way hold the majority number of minor villains within part 5. So overall, every minor villain in part 3 loves Dio, well minus Whole Horse, as he did attempt to kill Dio that one time, but whatever. The point is that almost all of Dio's minions love him in part 3, while Diavolo's minions or former minions within part 5 hate him. Also, Dio is a very sociable person, unlike Diavolo, who is very reclusive and avoids all relationships because to him they are a weakness that should be avoided and would only threaten his position as Passione's boss. For him, it isn't something to be valued or seen as a source of strength, but instead an open wound that must be sealed no matter what. But with Dio it's different. Even since the beginning of part 1, he's never seen having relationships as a weakness. Not only is his relationship with Pucci a great example of this, but we've also seen the vampire go up to random strangers before, getting them to join his group and to follow him without much effort, while Diavolo avoids every and any person that he sees. The only person that he will ever willingly talk to is Doppio directly, and even then he hid a lot of things about himself from him too, not to mention that him talking to Doppio was mainly out of survival and keeping himself anonymous. Now another interesting parallel between these 2 is in regards to the use of both their stands and identities, but before I get further into that, make sure to like the video if you've been enjoying it so far. It's the easiest way to support the channel and it helps spread the video to more viewers viewers like you. Now then, let's get back to the video. So with Dio's stand, Zoaldo, its ability and what it looked like was a big mystery to everyone in part 3 until the final arc, which began straight after Vanilla Ice's defeat. Now as for Dio himself, while it is true that his face was hidden throughout most of part 3, all the other characters still knew what he looked like, some through his photo, and you even had characters like Avdol, Kakyoin and Polnareff who had previous face-to-face encounters with him before the events of Stardust Crusaders. Now with Diavolo and his stand King Crimson, it is the complete opposite of Dio and Zoald's situation, as Diavolo's identity was a mystery to everyone in part 5 until the final fight, which was a race for the stand Arrow. Everyone already knew about King Crimson and its abilities way earlier in the story, including Bruno and his group, but with Diavolo his name wasn't even discovered until very late into the story of part 5, and this was after he had already killed another member of their team, as he did technically kill Bruno halfway through the story already. Not to mention that King Crimson gets more screen time than Diavolo does in both the anime and manga. Another interesting parallel between these two is how they deal with their enemies. Dio is very arrogant and prefers to play around with his victims instead of just killing them immediately. The final fight that he had with the Crusaders is a perfect example of this, because instead of just outright killing them one by one, which really he should have been capable of doing, he instead just toys around with them by scaring them with his stand ability, which causes them nothing but confusion, as they have no idea what it can do until Kakyoin concludes his investigation that forces him to be sacrificed in the process. But Diavolo is the complete opposite of this, as he just kills or one-shots anyone who dares to oppose him or try to uncover his identity. He may be overconfident and arrogant like Dio, but his extreme paranoia and obsession with power is what prevents him from allowing himself to relax about any possible threats. It's a big part of the reason why he managed to get away with running such a large and successful mafia business for over a decade. Case in point, Dio loves to toy with people, while Diavolo always makes sure to get straight to the point. Now another interesting parallel that I'd like to bring up is in regards to their children, specifically Trish and Jono. Jono is a accidental byproduct of Dio's hedonistic lifestyle, as he was someone that never really cared to acknowledge the children that he was putting out into the world through many of the women that he slept with, and this was mainly because it didn't affect him in any way. In contrast, Trish is a accidental byproduct of Diavolo, only having slept once or twice with her mother, and this was when Diavolo was 19 years old, something that happened in his past, a past that he saw as something to be erased, which is the reason why he sees Trish as a massive liability. He views her as a threat to everything that he has worked so hard for, even though it was the result of his own choices. This difference in how they view their children further emphasizes their contrasting priorities and personalities when it comes to their own offspring, because for Dio, Jono is just a minor accident to him, a inconsequential mistake with no severe consequences, while Trish is the complete opposite for Diavolo. Now another interesting parallel between these two are their opposing color schemes. With Dio, his is yellow and green in part 3, while Diavolo's is purple, red and pink. These colors are opposites on the color wheel, which is not only really cool but also helps to further strengthen their duality. Also, when it comes to their family histories, we see another cool parallel between the two, because as we know, Dio killed his father and lost his mother early in life, while Diavolo killed his mother and lost his father early in life as well. And if we take a look at their stands for just a moment, you'll realize that Dio's stand, the world, is for the most part very emotionless, with Dio himself providing most of the expressive actions. Meanwhile, King Crimson is incredibly expressive. I mean, just look at all those wonderful faces that he just loves to pull off. Meanwhile, most of Diavolo's own emotions are often reflected through his stand, because again, his screen time is very small in comparison to King Crimson. So with all of that in mind, those are the reasons why I think Dio and Diavolo are not just different, but also intended to be designed as parallels, each representing opposing personalities, traits and themes. Yeah, maybe a couple couple of these might be a stretch or just unintentional, but with Araki sensei, you just never know. But regardless, I do believe that most of them were intentional